business in Africa can be complicated. Politicians sometimes create circumstances that hurt businesses and consumers, and then they hide behind a wall of to avoid taking responsibility for their bad economic policies. On Red Tape Africa, we slice through the jargon, drawing a direct link between government actions and their effects on businesses across the continent. Red Tape Africa is where we break down the jargons of business and economic policies in plain English so that you can understand how the impacts on your business and on you. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa Business Radio as we deliver an impartial verdict on these policies. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English. Through the bulb with Red Tape Africa. Follow us on all social media at Red Tape Africa and tweet at us using the hashtag Red Tape Africa. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English.
It's easy to be independent when you've got money, but to be independent when you haven't got a thing, that is the Lord's test. That is a quote from Mahalia Jackson. My name is David Hundeyi, and you're listening to Red Tape Africa on Africa Business Radio, where we break down economic policies in plain English and link them directly to you. No long story. On Red Tape Africa today, we'll be talking about Francophone West Africa, Francophone West-Central Africa, which is a region of Africa which includes Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Senegal, Mali, and Cameroon, amongst others. And to discuss the topic with me, I have security analyst and Francophone West Africa specialist, Kikelomo.
Yeah, lovely to be here, David. It's really lovely to be here. It is a lovely topic, and it's a bit of what has been discussed thus far. If we could all remember, the ECOWAS has been talking about focused like a single monetary system where we can use across the whole of the, I think, 14 to 15 countries that are part of ECOWAS. And it's been an issue from the get-go. And the biggest issue has been how to bring in the Francophone countries that already use the CFA, that is on the euro. And why are they on the euro in the first instance is because France is involved.
Hold that thought, Kikelomo.
Yeah.
So just before we get back to her, we're going to go on a quick break. Before we go on the break, I'm going to mention that later on in the show, we'll also be taking your comments and voice notes. Don't forget that we want to hear from you wherever in the world you're listening from. So tweet at us with the hashtag RedTapeAfrica. That is hashtag RedTapeAfrica. And we'll do our best to read out your tweets and engage with them. You can also send your voice notes to +234 701 650 8975. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and follow our social media pages at Red Tape Africa and at Africa Biz Radio. We'll be right back.
To Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available as podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa. You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available as podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
Cut through the bulb with Red Tape Africa. Follow us on all social media at Red Tape Africa and tweet at us using the hashtag Red Tape Africa. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English.
still listening to Red Tape Africa with David Haldane. We're in the studio with Kikelomo Shodeko, a security analyst at Salama Fikira, an international security company. So just before we went on the break, she was telling us a bit about her area of expertise in Francophone West Africa, especially with regards to the common currency used by 14 Francophone West African countries. So we're not going to go straight into it because I also want to mention that the scope of today's conversation is also going to include Nigeria. We're going to look Nigeria into it. So we don't just want to look at what the implication of the CFA currency is on Francophone West Africa's economy. We also want to look at the implications of France's influence on Nigeria's sphere of influence on the Nigerian economy, the implications for Nigeria going forward. And then we also want to look at the geopolitical situation of Nigeria, especially with regards to security, which is obviously one of Kikelomo's areas of expertise. So let's get straight into it now. Now, I want to ask you, I'm sure we've all read a popular article that went viral some years ago talking about how 14 African countries essentially pay a colonial tax to France via the way the CFA currency is handled. So for the benefit of those who don't know, the CFA currency is a common currency zone established by the French government over 14 of its former jurisdictions in West and Central Africa. Now, under the terms of the CFA agreement, these governments of these countries they're not able to set their own interest rates, they're not able to issue their own money. So basically the Banque de France is essentially in charge of their monetary policies. Now, some have criticized this policy, saying that essentially it means that these are not, independent countries as such, because essentially France is still directly in charge of their economies. These countries are not able, for example, to borrow money in the way that Nigeria can because they do not issue their own currency. These countries are not able to store their own currency reserves because the currency reserves are stored in the Banque de France. So there's a growing groundswell that opposes the continued existence of the CFA franc. So I want to ask you, Kikelomo, now, in your assessment, what has been the impact of the CFA, as they call it, on economic growth, on revenue generation, and on economic stability in that region? And this is an important question because on the other side, on the flip side, some have also argued that unlike the Naira, the CFA is a very stable currency. So obviously, there's a bit of a back and forth. So what is your take?
Basically they do have a reserve, but it's just 50% they have. That is, they have to put in 50% of their reserve into the Banque de France to have a sort of buffer for their currency. So when we say a tax, it's making it really colonial, right? Just like you explained it. So let's make it let's say they're economically savvy in this situation. So they decide to have a reserve. They put 50% of their reserve to kind of balance their own currency. That's me playing the devil's advocate in this situation. So now let's look at it. How has it affected the average Francophone person in his or her country? The truth is this: what we don't have, they have a little. And as you said, it doesn't fluctuate like that. It's like the strength is so strong even against the dollar is shocking. But at the end of the day, whatever it is they have to do, they have to always consider how their money is on the euro before they can do anything. So if you notice very well, they are the ones that actually mostly enjoy all the signing of those bilateral agreements with all these countries we rarely even have relationships with in Nigeria. So they tend to have those kind of donations from those countries, and they get to have, when it comes to buying and selling, their money stays put. It doesn't fluctuate like ours. Like it stays the same way. So if it's 600 to a dollar, 600 francs CFA to a dollar, it's 600 francs CFA to a dollar. And it stays that way for months until the dollar fluctuates again or the euro fluctuates against the dollar before it moves. Frankly, it is a good thing. But looking at the foundation of where that money is coming from is actually the problem. So when do this country really get their freedoms? When do they know how to spend their money? Where do they know how to spend their money? Because it's as if their money is stagnant.
Yes.
It's not like they're using the money for anything tangible. Even those ones that have all the natural resources. So they have gold, they have uranium, they have really, really great natural resources that generally should provide or make the country better for them. Not to crack an egg without, just for cracking's sake. They do have stable electricity. They do have water. And those are the basics we don't even have in Nigeria. Shade thrown. Yeah, we don't even have that. And that is based on their relationship with France.
Yes.
Whether we want to agree with that or not. So on one side, it makes a lot of sense. I don't have to worry about so many things. As long as I have my 50% of my reserve in your bank, you stabilize my money because I'm spending your money.
But
right?
then the argument is that essentially that means that if you were poor last year, you're going to be poor next year, you're going to be poor next 10 years, your situation is not going to change.
Yeah, that's why the English-speaking Africans are helping them. You are taking business into their countries. These countries are not really expanding, but you have English-speaking. Me saying English-speaking makes it seem as if there are other English-speaking countries that are really invested in this country. Please let me make it clear. I am saying Nigerians move from Nigeria and go into these countries and one way or another expand their economy. In what sense? They are bringing in business. They are opening new shops. They are opening, they're putting in investment. They are buying the lands that on an average person there cannot buy. And they expand the horizon. And that is how they expand generally, these countries. But the truth be told, our biggest argument against this monetary stabilization, if we can put it that way, is the fact that they really don't have freedoms in spending their own money. That is the biggest argument, and that is the biggest critique also from me, and that is the biggest problem they are having at the moment.
So what does that mean for a consumer, a random person on the road in Yaoundé or in Yamoussoukro or in Cotonou? Like, so someone who maybe has a university degree looking for a job. Obviously, we know the unemployment problem is a Pan-African problem. It's not, but what does that specifically mean in terms of the prospects to an average consumer on the street, and also in terms of their consumer prices, that sort of thing? What effect does this have on their economic indices and on their future prospects?
Yeah, the truth is, for the average consumer, prices of things don't jerk up like here in Nigeria.
Okay.
The prices are stabilized. That's the funny thing about their markets, because they do have importation. It's the same. It's practically the same issue we're having here in Nigeria. You import, but your money remains stable in the sense that if this week you bought your rice at 400 CFA, they sell in bowls, like not in the same derica we sell in bowls. It's still going to be 400 next year. If it changes from 400 to 450 on some occasion, is because the price of importation or something changed. But on an average, their price stays the same. The same bread we have been buying for 125, sorry, I'm speaking French, that's 125 francs, is the same bread that is still being sold till today at 125 francs. That is one of the advantages. It doesn't change the prices. You can't go now suddenly and they tell you the bread is 200 or the bread is 150 because flour is expensive or because sugar is expensive. No, the prices remain the same for a longer period of time for the consumer. And the consumer doesn't really understand how that works either. As long as he can find the small CFA to spend on a daily basis, the conditions placed on his money doesn't really matter. It just makes the money, quote unquote, stronger because it's been spent by you're producing something, you're not producing anything. You're still enjoying the same benefits someone in Senegal is enjoying. If I'm in Niger, it's the same CFA that someone in Senegal is spending. So I can move with my money from Niger to Senegal and still spend the same money. So now the only problem is considering the country you're going to and how expensive things can be there. Now, commodity-wise, based on location is the only time your prices change. You can get your basket of onions, say, maybe a basket of onions, say, for 500 francs in Mali, because Mali produces onions and it's cheaper and all that. You might go to a country that doesn't produce the onions and you buy more expensive, maybe like 1,000 for a basket. It depends on how and when you are moving or where you're moving to. So it's not really the commodity that is determining the price, but the location.
Now, this situation that you have just described sounds to me very close to what economists call stagflation, which means you're not moving backward, but you're not particularly moving forward either, which economists generally tend to think of as a bad thing. So, is that what it is?
Well, they are in a stagnation, kind of, to be frank. The stagflation is real. It is very real, because it's really difficult in the sense that for the average person to come from the bottom to rise to the top, it's so difficult.
So their social mobility is not great.
No, it's not. It's not so great. You have to get a job to start, start rolling in some cash. Like, it's really difficult. Frankly, I can say that. And
I think I've heard this from someone before. This was someone who spent some time in Ivory Coast, in Abidjan, which, he praised to me as a really modern city, obviously built by the French. Yeah. And obviously, supposedly, way ahead of Lagos. I don't know how true that is because I've never been to Abidjan.
Oh, okay.
But I heard a lot of good things about it. And one thing he said was, if you're not working for a multinational or for one of the French companies there, or maybe you happen to own a big supermarket or that kind of thing, or a restaurant, your prospects of moving up socially, your prospects of changing your social class are very remote. So if your father was a cocoa farmer working inland, you're probably going to be a cocoa farmer too. Your child is probably going to be a cocoa farmer, and you're going to be taking whatever prices the international market gives you, because obviously they're not in a position of power. Yeah. And that's pretty much just how it is. That's how the French want it. That's how the market wants it. And so everyone is just poor and poor in perpetuity.
Yeah, the truth is, that's the difference between the cultures that come into play now. We in Nigeria don't sit idle and believe that because my dad was a cocoa farmer, I can reach higher. We have that. That's the difference between us. Yeah, we are like that. But they there don't have this tendency to want to run a race. They are content people. I will put it as content in the sense that because they don't have the same tendency to want to run, like I said. They are not trying to pick a baton from someone and, no. They are good with what they have. As long as the stagflation comes into play again, it stays a status quo. We're good. Nobody's sick. And if you're sick, the hospitals are good too. They have good doctors. That's the shocking part. The social amenities that are around them, I'm not saying it's excellent.
But it's enough.
But it's enough for them.
Right.
And this you can see in all the countries, all of them. And you should have heard about the OHADA. OHADA is one of is the law that guides traders, commerce, business. Right. It guides traders all through. So every country that is under the UMOA, that's the West African Monetary Union, everybody falls in line. Everything is like a pack of cards. You just pile in, and it's in a straight line, and everything is just perfect like that. So the thing is, they have the social amenities, they have the light, they have the water. They are content in that sense that I'm a cocoa farmer. As long as nothing is eating up my farm and I can still present the cocoa to the sellers, I'm good to go. I'm fine. Everything is great. The moment the issues will arise is when they begin to believe that we can reach higher than where we are right now. So you will now see an uprising. And the uprising will not be against the French, because the French are not physically in your country anymore. It's your government that is in your country. Right. Now, when you try to explain to your government that this is what I want, and the government is like, I can't help you because, how my hands are tied. I got my money, half and half. I have to talk to France first, There's nothing I can really do. So what the government would just do is say, okay. They will go on strike, which is their first thing. Oh, they have unions from here till heaven.
Right.
Everything has a union. When I say everything, any small gathering of people have a union. Cocoa sellers, they have a union. Street hawkers, they have a union. They can decide not to sell and they close shop. So they can go on strike. And so the government just sits down and say, see, this is the situation. There's nothing I can do for you. But, this is how I'm going to do it. So, you just have to, you can strike for as long as you want. But the government will just tell you what they can do. And if you agree, great. If you don't, yeah. So that's the French government have been able to placate their people. That is the Francophone government now. They've been able to placate their people to an extent. But as they say, when the bar break, the cradle will fall.
So going forward, assuming this status quo does not change, the French government keeps on consolidating its let me say influence, not power, because power sounds very colonial.
Exactly.
But French government keeps on increasing its influence in those parts of West Africa, particularly in the Ivory Coast, where it has its most visible presence. So I read a couple of weeks ago, for example, that the planned metro rail system in Abidjan is obviously being constructed by a French company. Shock, surprise. So, and that just seems to be the case. So where, for example, in Nigeria, rail systems under construction are being constructed by the Chinese. Same thing in Zambia, in Kenya, it's the Chinese. In West Africa, that seems to be the French enclave. The French don't let anybody near their turf, so to speak. So, in terms of our future economic integration, which I think will happen anyway, it's inevitable. Whether we close our borders or whatever it is we think we're doing, inevitably, if we want to survive, West Africa and eventually Africa is going to have to carry out a lot more intra-regional trade. It's going to happen whether our governments like it or not. In that context, how does this sort of walling off of French West Africa, West-Central Africa, how does that play out in the context of African integration?
I think their government is basically going to weigh their options. That's what's going to happen. Is it beneficial or not? Is France beneficial to me or Nigeria beneficial to me, because we are the strongest players and the strongest player in all these countries? The truth is, we don't even believe that, but that's the truth. We are the strongest players in this country.
Well, as
an African.
That's not a controversial thing.
Yeah, exactly. As an African country, because we are the ones that are expanding their economies. We bring the new, the bad, the good, the ugly. We bring it to them. So the thing is, the government will definitely have to weigh their options. Is it better for me with France? But UMOA seems to be on the side of joining the ECOWAS money, the ECO.
Yeah.
So let's see how that plays. It will definitely be an interesting side to see, because they are interested in joining the ECO rather than stay with France. So let the games begin.
Hold that thought, because we'll be right back.
Welcome to 989 Tech Talk. This show is in affiliation with Africa Business Radio, your #1 online radio station. 989 Tech Talk covers all things tech in the agricultural space. My name is Michelle. I am mad about tech. No.
Exploring the African narrative, leading the conversation and enlightening our listener towards a profitable Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board the flight that takes you from Stratton to Straightened. We are seconds from takeoff. We ask that you please fasten your earpiece into your eardrum and please log on to africabusinessradio.com to avoid being distracted. Thank you for choosing Africa Business Radio. Enjoy this cerebral journey.
They are 1.8 billion globally. They will make 75% of workforce by 2025. They will outspace earnings of baby boomers in less than 10 years. Smartphones and tablets are the argument settlers and fact checkers for every conversation. Get more insights on African millennials on Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
business in Africa can be complicated. Politicians sometimes create circumstances that hurt businesses and consumers, and then they hide behind a wall of to avoid taking responsibility for their bad economic policies. On Red Tape Africa, we slice through the jargon, drawing a direct link between government actions and their effects on businesses across the continent. Red Tape Africa is where we break down the jargons of business and economic policies in plain English so that you can understand how the impacts on your business and on you. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa Business Radio as we deliver an impartial verdict on these policies. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English. Cut through the ball with Red Tape Africa. Follow us on all social media at Red Tape Africa and tweet at us using the hashtag Red Tape Africa. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English.
You're still listening to Red Tape Africa with David Hundein and my guest, Kikelomo Shodeko. Just before we went on the break, we were talking about the impact of the French influence over West Africa in the context of future African economic integration. Now, just going back to that briefly, I want to mention that while you mentioned that Nigeria obviously is the only other game in town apart from France. Now, last week on the show, I remember I was speaking to my guest, and she mentioned that the discussion we had was about whether Nigeria stands to lose its leadership position to Ghana, and the conclusion from that conversation was not necessarily, but at the same time, it's not impossible because Nigeria seems to be doing all the wrong things all at the same time, all at once, while Ghana seems to be doing some of the right things at least and heading roughly in the right direction. So, for example, the location of the proposed West African Aerotropolis, the hub for West African aviation, ordinarily would have been assumed to be Lagos. Now the world is turning toward Accra. So it seems as if Nigeria is not too big to fail. So in the context of, God forbid nobody wants this to happen, but in the context of a national economic failure in Nigeria, the kind of failure that makes sort of the state itself, the apparatus of state, to fail. The borders are no longer manageable in any practical sense. What does this mean for Francophone West Africa? And I ask this question because I've spoken to a security researcher from Togo before, and he made the point that countries like Benin, Togo, even Ghana, as far afield as Cote d'Ivoire, these countries are worried about the Cameroon. Those countries they actually have plans drawn up, contingency plans for a potential Nigerian national disaster. So when there's a couple of dozen million refugees streaming out of Nigeria into the West African neighborhood, which really does not have the economic or physical capacity to take care of these people. What happens?
Like you said, God forbid. That's I'm sorry to bring him in. My dad once said that no country on our borders have the capacity to hold us. So he guesses that maybe that's one of the reasons God made sure we never fail. It sounded hilarious when I was like, oh, please, man. But the truth is, he's very correct. Like we said earlier, Nigerians can fly. They know when to fly. They can hop 5 countries and get to a country that has the opportunity they seek to even dig out more opportunity. So here's the scenario. It's clear, David. They do not have the capacity for refugees from Nigeria. You remember the Bakassi situation and how crazy it turned out, and they're still trying to figure out how to deal with the with the influx of Cameroonians and Nigerians, and it's just a mess. So in this place, we throw out the expertise out the window, and we just start praying that God, please don't let it go wrong. And if it does, I guess the Nigerian thing to do is pick up the dirt, like pick it up from where it falls apart. But it's a dangerous thing nonetheless. It is a dangerous thing. If economically the government doesn't have the capacity to hold us, like to reel us in as they think they are at the moment, I think the only thing that will happen is if Nigerians do decide to move into these countries, they will not be moving in as refugees. That is clear. They will be moving in as people that want to take over. We take over. Check it.
And these
we take over. They will not like it. We come in to take over because a Nigerian thinking, why would I be a refugee in Cameroon? There's this business. There's this business. We can't do this thing. It's not rocket science. So all you need is, so you're a refugee. So you're the bring what do you have? Bring your money. What do you have? We'll join it. Let's try and do this, And
then outcompete the natives.
Outcompete and turn them to your own PAs. Believe me. Nigerians do that. And that is one thing our government has not been able to tap into. And for me, that is a horrible thing. Because you don't even have a clue what our fellow citizens leave Nigeria. If you see them in Cote d'Ivoire, they're the one, the screams that they say come from Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked. There's a Nigerian that is heading this department, heading these industries, being the ones to cook up these things, inviting the Chinese. And there's another thing where we think that everything that is being built at the moment is built by the French. Not necessarily. China is already there too. They're already working on the ground. They're there. They're the ones bringing in the goods.
Give us some idea of the scale of Chinese involvement in
now, let me tell you, 3/4 of the commodity sold in Francophone West-Central Africa is China. Minus our own business brothers going into that place too.
Right.
Yes. The commodity market is not French. It is Chinese. You have Chinese people owning shops. Where is rare in, let's say, for example, in Lagos, here is a rarity to see them own shops.
No, you do not.
You can just have leasing, okay. But there, they own shops. You're going into a Chinese, you see even the name of the shop in the main market. Then it's from there, people that resell go to pick out. You get what I mean? Whereas in Eko here, you only find the madams and the ogas doing their business directly. There, it's the contrary. Chinese people have shops. So it's not just the French. It's like the French knows what they are controlling. They know where the strength lies.
Which is where? Finance?
The money.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds, the money. Giving if I have $100 million in my reserve and I'm giving you 50 million on a regular, I don't need you. What's my business with you? France is also struggling, as you know.
Yes.
They are. So they are struggling economically. So they rely on all this. If Gabon gives you 50, and which is impossible that they have 100 million because they have petrol. Mali gives you another 50. Mali has gold. Mali has uranium. Niger has petrol, has uranium, has gold. Guinea. There's not... You're boiling. It's like someone everybody is giving you something of their reserve, so you're boiling. So why would I concentrate on commodity? I really don't care about that. So China is right there. They are doing the construction work. They are building roads. They are sealing up roads. The only difference is because you have French citizens and France feels like they still owe them something. They just make amenities work. They just make it work, especially for the cities. And if you notice, just major roads have roads. The rest of the streets are just sand or tarred, or they decide to put in the interlocking when they decide to. So it is the same problem. The problem doesn't change. As long as money is being moved from the from the secondary source to the primary source, to the mothership, everything is all right. So this country is quote and unquote don't even feel that they have an issue yet. But when Nigerians come in and build big businesses, you know, they all have a kind of fear for Nigeria in itself, and Nigerians generally. Yes, we crazy people. Yeah. But forget that. Even before you meet an average Nigerian, you've already had a story preceding you.
Yes, exactly.
Do you get what I mean? So these Nigerians come in and say, wow, look at opportunities everywhere. Look at opportunities everywhere. Then they come in and like hawks and they're like, how come my fellow African be doing this?
Yeah.
So problem starts. That is the only time they remember to blame the government. So everything is cool until an outsider comes in and tells you, but this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Why are you wasting this? So if, for example, this border closure, who knew that goods were being pushed around via the roads?
It's been quite a revelation to me.
Which is shocking.
The amount of upheaval that there has been.
Yes. Nigerians, now let me even shock you more. I met a woman once at I think Aflao. Is it Aflao? No. Semeboda.
Yeah.
She was carrying a sack of sachet, Milo, milk, all those things, sachet. She's moving it into a market woman there. There's a market woman. Why? Because it got to a stage the poor ones couldn't afford the tin or the refills. So what did she decide? She was like, please, will you people sell these small sachet of everything? Please, could you be transporting it maybe once a week or twice a week? And I was shocked that that's someone's business. And she goes into Lagos Island, buys those sachets as much as she could carry, put them in a bag. They can't stop you because it's not contraband. It's just sachet of milk and Milo. And nobody will stop you. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And you move in from there and you go into another person's country and you give it to the woman. The woman can sell for 100 francs or 25 francs. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's viable. That's business for that person. Now imagine this border closure.
That's amazing.
That's just a minuscule. Sorry, the small part. Sorry, I mix my French with English sometimes. Like the small part of business that is happening. Now you even have people. Do you know they move chemicals? We don't have some chemicals here in Nigeria. There are brothers that move chemicals from Ghana, from Togo, from Cote d'Ivoire, as far as Cote d'Ivoire. They bring in the chemicals to do those made in Nigeria soaps that we see.
Right.
So it's a big movement of goods and services. You forget the Masons come into our country to work. You should see them now everywhere.
From Benin, from Togo.
Yes, you should see them now. There are even some that they don't want to be recognized as Beninese, but they want to be recognized as Togolese because maybe they feel Benin's too close.
Yeah.
And we have this, just the same way we feel when we go out. I'm like, no, I'm not Nigerian. I'm like Cameroon, half here. You just want to twist it up. But the truth remains that we are all affected. I don't care who you are. We are all affected.
And this brings me to the next question I was going to ask, because I asked Eugene Drew this question on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
As Nigeria seems determined to pursue an official policy of autarky, does not want to buy, does not want to sell, trade with its neighbors, because Nigeria believes that its internal market is the be-all and end-all, which I personally disagree with. In terms of the regional influence that Nigeria has built unofficially through the kind of economic links that you've described, because obviously our government does not tap into this officially, and our government does not make optimal use of this soft power, but that soft power exists nonetheless. Now, as this government policy is effectively destroying that soft power, what are the prospects of Francophone West Africa essentially cutting Nigeria out of the West African pie? Is it possible? And how would you see such a situation building up?
To be a bit boastful, I think it's still impossible to cut out Nigeria. You see, what government... okay, I'm playing devil's advocate again. I think government is testing the waters in the sense that it's believing so much in the population to run an internal economy, in the sense that we buy ourselves, we let's see what we can generate by ourselves. It's a dangerous thing. It is very, very dangerous. Maybe that's the idea behind, let's see what our capacity is within ourselves. It's very, very dangerous. But at the same time, I'll play devil's advocate again. Let's see what we can do. But the rest of Africa can't really cut us off because we have the purchasing power. Not just the purchasing power. We have the drive. Check it. Put a Ghanaian I don't care where you come from, South Africa, that you have all the quote-unquote good things, good roads and everything. Put a South African, put a Nigerian, and give them the same resources. Not to be boastful, the Nigeria will fly. Because our instinct remains the same wherever you find yourself. You see, when we are in Nigeria, we can be slow in our own mind eye. In our own mind eye, in the sense that maybe you diminish people and be like, whatever, he didn't go to school, what does he know, blah, blah, blah. But just release that person into an environment that they say this opportunity is here, they fly. So it will be very difficult for the rest of Africa to cut us off just like that. It will be very difficult. There are Nigerians, like I said, are in manufacturing places outside. There are plenty. There are some that are even into importation. Do you know that the influx of the ports along West Africa, do you know we're the ones that make it viable?
I've heard that story several times.
Do you know people import things into places like Lomé, have connect to the extent that they can drive your stuff from Lomé and bring it to the north-south, where the borders link from that country into? That is how insane, when it comes to business, Nigerians are. So imagine someone that has the connect for someone that is in Lomé, and you naturally just have this person that works in Lomé port and is a Togolese, and he knows that, oh, this is my Nigerian person. Every time this vessel comes in, is load, and I'm getting 100,000 CFA per load. Now imagine they now say, cannot pass that load again. No, that's a problem. So
yes, it is a problem.
Exactly. So we, as a country, as a people, we make other African countries work. Hence the reason they are all shouting that, open border, beg, please.
Yeah, but from our own perspective,
but
apart from the fact that we're destroying or potentially destroying our soft power in the region, which is a very important thing, I just kind of keep the feeling that even economically, there's a certain self-harming quality to this, because these supply chains have been built up over decades.
Yeah, decades.
And it takes literally weeks to destroy them.
I agree.
Or
to pause them. Let's not put destroy yet. Let's say pause.
Destroy is a strong word. But then again, in business, pause and destroy, are they that different? Because the Chinese are also hanging around in the background. I hear that
loud and clear. Yeah.
You know, the Chinese are also looking for how to expand, break into. Yeah. So I was speaking to someone the other day, and I was informed that in West Africa, the networks, the most respected business networks, retail networks, are the Igbo business network from Nigeria, definitely, and the Lebanese business network. And the Chinese are looking for how to break in, and they've not had that opportunity yet. Yeah. And I fear that we may be presenting this to them like on a platter, on a silver platter.
Yeah, it's a fear, but I will repeat again, boastfully. No matter how much the Chinese try to break into the market, the Nigerians have strongholds. You know the funny thing? As this is ongoing, we are water. We will flow any freaking way we want. Government is blocking this, right?
But it's still going to find its way.
I'm telling you, we will leak through. We will find. They block one way. When they tell you that, government policy shouldn't really bug you so much, we'll figure out a way, So no matter the situation, I was still, and I'm saying boastfully, because this is how we always sound when we are out of the country, when you're talking amongst Nigerians. We're like, oh, my Nigerians, they will not agree, So the truth remains that they will find their way. The Chinese might try to break this market, but for this duration, don't think that they are not already lobbying the government to go open this border now. Pretty yours. And as they are lobbying, they are still trying to figure out ways in which they solidify or keep their businesses. Do you get what I mean? So, in my own boastful way, I repeat, I will say it's not yet open completely to the Chinese. Yes, they're still a player. They're still trying to break in. It's not yet completely open because these people are still figuring out ways to still work with the situation at hand. And to be frank, let's not kid ourselves. There will be glisten of hands with all this
Definitely.
There will be. The people are getting more money. It should just be tougher.
Yeah.
Because before it was open, now people like, okay, let me this thing pass, I beg. We got to do business.
Hold that thought, because when we come back, we're also going to be taking some of your feedback from social media using the hashtag RedTapeAfrica. And we're also going to be taking your voice notes if you send them through. Don't forget, you can send your voice notes to the WhatsApp number +234 701 650 8975. That is +234 701 650 8975. When we come back, I'm going to be asking Kikelomo our penultimate question, and I believe the most important question on this episode so far. We'll be right back.
Scared.
Doing business in Africa can be complicated. Politicians sometimes create circumstances that hurt businesses and consumers, and then they hide behind a wall of to avoid taking responsibility for their bad economic policies. On Red Tape Africa, we slice through the jargon, drawing a direct link between government actions and their effects on businesses across the continent. Red Tape Africa is where we break down the jargons of business and economic policies in plain English so that you can understand how the impacts on your business and on you. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa Business Radio as we deliver an impartial verdict on these policies. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English. Doing business in Africa can be complicated. Politicians sometimes create circumstances that hurt businesses and consumers, and then they hide behind a wall of to avoid taking responsibility for their bad economic policies. On Red Tape Africa, we slice through the jargon, drawing a direct link between government actions and their effects on businesses across the continent. Red Tape Africa is where we break down the jargons of business and economic policies in plain English so that you can understand how the impacts on your business and on you. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa Business Radio as we deliver an impartial verdict on these policies. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English. Cut through the ball with Red Tape Africa. Follow us on all social media at Red Tape Africa and tweet at us using the hashtag Red Tape Africa. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English.
Welcome back. You're still listening to Red Tape Africa. Before we went on the break, we were having a word about the potential loss of soft power by Nigeria in the West African or the West-Central African sub-region. And as Kikelomo informed us, that is not going to happen, at least not anytime soon. Which leads us to the final question, or the final set of questions that I want to ask Kikelomo on the show today. Now, we've spoken a lot about how the CFA impacts on the economies of these 14 countries. Now, I want to put you on the spot here. CFA versus their individual sovereign currencies for these 14 countries. As an African, but also as someone with a high level of economic awareness and who has actually lived in these places, which do you prefer?
The independence of their currency or still remaining on the CFA?
Yes.
To be frank, I don't believe they can survive without being together, considering that the CFA is on the euro. It strengthens the euro on one side, and it also strengthens the CFA on the other side. It's quid pro quo. But maybe as an African, and I feel like freedom is in the air and all that, let's see if they can work with their different currencies on their own.
So then that brings us to the third way, which is the ECO, the proposed West African common currency. Now, you said you don't really see them surviving individually without each other. And I think I tend to agree regardless, because to be fair, a country like Togo, 3 million people, 4 million people issuing its own currency, West Africa, poor country, barely produces anything. I'm not so sure that will work. But the ECHO provides, on paper anyway, provides a third way, because this is a sovereign African currency. It has, on paper at least, has all the benefits of the CFA. Offers the same interoperability across borders. On paper offers the same stability. We don't know how that will work in practice, but on paper it does. On paper offers the same benefits to a West African as a European in Western Europe under the Eurozone. So, first of all, do you see the operation of the CFA as a model for how the proposed ECHO will operate? Obviously, we don't actually know how the ECHO will operate. We don't really know anything about it. The only thing we know about it pretty much is the name. So, but if you were to recommend an operating framework for the ECHO, would the CFA serve as the basis?
Yeah, I do agree, because over the years they've been able to remain the same. They have a body. The body monitors how the money goes up and down. They all have the same central bank. The central bank in each country is positioned in each country. They tell us when they are bringing out notes instead of coins and coins instead of notes. And they've been able to maintain the use of the coin, unlike our Naira that kept fading away with the coin and fading away with the paper. But they kept the use of the coin. So which there's a semblance of that it's still fine. So we can use that. Now, what will kill the ECHO is if we insist on doing it the same thing with the Naira, because Nigeria will definitely have a strong influence on how the ECHO works, because Nigeria is, I think, one of the big economies in West Africa, or basically is the biggest, I think.
I think it has like 60-something% share of the West African economy.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it will be like designed based on the Nigerian economy, whether we want to accept it or not. So the other
kind of like the Eurozone
currencies,
in Germany.
yeah. So exactly. So other countries will just have to fall in line. And knowing how Nigeria works, I do not trust us like that. Nevertheless, we can use the CFA as a prototype, because they've been able to remain solid despite the problems. They remain solid. They're still there. They're still trying to work through it. And I think because they are also tired of people protesting here and there about we need to be free from France, So the ECHO seemed like the latest baby, the cutest baby in town. Like, yeah, I want me some ECHO. I'll be free from all the wahala of CFA. So I think it's like the hottest thing at the moment to move to the ECHO. But if we do not follow the CFA, like they already have an experience, all the people in charge, all the people in the industry in the Francophone countries, they already know how the CFA works. So I think they should be more in charge of talking about how that ECHO will work. That is, doing a copycat of the framework that has been produced through France and how they've been able to put together the France CFA. So that would help a little bit on how to go about it, but Nigeria will still have the veto. That's where the problem will come in. Because
presently, with the power that we do have within ECOWAS and within UEMOA, we appear to be sort of bullying our neighbors. And it doesn't seem to be any indication that that's going to change.
Exactly. So that's where the issue will help. So David, let me help you. So we just say UEMOA.
You're right, okay. For future reference.
Oh, WAMU, as in English.
I see it on my passport and I don't know how to pronounce it.
UEMOA.
Right, okay,
yeah.
Okay. Noted.
Yeah, it's fine. So that's basically it. That's the difficulty that will arise. Nigeria, big brother, we can bully anyone we want. No, I don't want it like this. Just because you're not coming from France, no. You have to do it my way. And with changing government that comes from time to time.
Yeah, and there's a complete 180.
Exactly. So you can just go, no, I don't want this one again. I want this type, So all those factors have to be keyed in. We are hoping it does work, so that at the end of the day we can say, I use the ECHO so I can go to Ghana or to Senegal and not be too scared that I don't have money again, and also be able to withdraw money. It's one thing to be able to use the ECHO and still be able to run banking opportunities there. That's why if you notice, it's been easy for this mobile money thing to work across those continents. Yes. So from one continent to the other you can send money. From one country to the other you can send money, so it's not a problem. But here in Nigeria, it's complicated, Everything is complicated. So, and you see them, they're crawling to the top little by little and doing business. There's only some countries that are having security issues that are being confounded in the 100th place. But most of them, little by little, they are crawling away from the the poorest country in the world phrase, So that's it. That's
and
part of it.
finally, just before we close the episode, I want to get a prediction from you. Now, no pressure whatsoever. So, as we all know, presently Nigeria is not particularly interested in engaging economically with its neighbors. But as I said earlier in the show, I believe it's inevitable that there will be some level of economic integration across the region. Now, President Buhari, no President Buhari, what year or what period do you predict that this integration, this cross-border integration, will become inevitable?
Inevitability. Let me see. It's already inevitable. Running away from the question. It's already inevitable. We're just beating our time. I think we're just flexing our muscles a bit. We flex our muscles from time to time. You remember? During President Obasanjo, we flex. During
IBB's time,
during
Abacha's time,
we flex. So we flex. So I think flexing is not an issue. I think it's just us integrating nevertheless.
So basically, after this current administration, then we're going to come down a bit.
Yeah, we're going to be fine again. Then we go up again. So I think we will keep flexing. I don't think the integration is already there. I'll put it that way. But it is inevitable that we keep flexing. Right, I think that's how it will be.
You ran away from putting a date to it. Exactly. Because I wanted to be like, security analyst Kikelomo Shodeko predicts 2023 for West African integration. Unfortunately, I can't have that. It's been great having you on the show.
Yes,
Kikelomo.
lovely
it's
being
been
here.
A fantastic episode. Also want to thank my producer, Temitope Samuel, and the sound engineer, Innocent, and our studio co-traveler, Meadows, for keeping us company during the episode. Good afternoon.
Is it's 442. Amazing, cool stuff. That's just super amazing, isn't it? Africa Business Radio is doing 442 on the news with 40% Nigerian stories, 40% African stories, and 20% global stories. Now that's what I call a homegrown, heart-breaking goal. Go, 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 go. Yes. Go. Oh, this feels like the final football match between two soccer warriors. Oh my God, can somebody please tell me what the African formation is? Oh, it's 442. Amazing, cool stuff. That's just super amazing, isn't it? Africa Business Radio is doing 442 on the news with 40% Nigerian stories, 40% African stories, and 20% global stories. Now that's what I call a homegrown, heart-breaking goal. Go, 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 go. Yes. Go.
From the moment you wake up to the moment you go back to sleep, technology is everywhere. It is changing everything so fast that many no longer remember what it is like to live without technology. You might even say the whole world is mad about tech. Welcome to 989 Tech Talk, only on Africa Business Radio.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available as podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
Exploring the African narrative, leading the conversation and enlightening our listener towards a profitable Africa.